Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And welcome to another episode of Talking with Teachers. Today's guest is extremely special, very important to myself. It's not a popular person, but someone who's had a major influence on my own life when I was very young. I really felt it important to honor him in some way so that more people could know about this very good and righteous man who I know as Imam Rasul Suluki. Imam Rasul converted to Islam in 1975 and begun his Islamic education with Islamic scholars in the New York metropolitan area. A few years later, he became the Imam of Masjid Muhammad in New Brunswick, New Jersey. And in 1979, he was hired as a part-time chaplain by Mountain View Youth Correctional Facility and would continue his work over the years as a chaplain, teacher, and counselor at multiple institutions, including the Jamesburg Training School for Boys, Mid-State Correctional Facility, and the New Jersey State Prison. Imam Rasul holds certification as a teacher in special education and has studied Islam at the Institute for Islamic Education under the tutelage of Dr. Habib Malik, who recently passed away. May Allah have mercy on him. He studied at the American Open University, studied with Sunni Path, Kiflain, and the Sharia Arabic online program. He presently serves the communities in Burlington County, New Jersey. So I'd like to bring to our screen our Sheikh, our teacher, Imam Rasul Suluki. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Sheikh, how are you?
I'm good, alhamdulillah, and yourself?
Alhamdulillah, I'm doing well. Really, really an honor. It's a pleasure to speak with you today and miss the time we used to spend together when I was living on the East Coast. But alhamdulillah, I really do think that it was really important for me to give you this opportunity to be featured on this podcast of mine we call Talking with Teachers. So, inshallah, it really is great. It was great to have this opportunity.
Usually I try to avoid things like this, but you go ahead.
Right. So of course, a lot of brothers, of course, may have spent some time in prison in New Jersey. They're familiar with you. A number of other people in Philadelphia and the tri-state area are familiar with yourself. I typically begin by asking questions about the background, your history, so, how did it all start? What were things like growing up? And then how do you become Muslim? What were things like with family? And then eventually what led you to Islam?
Well, alhamdulillah. Wa salatu wa salam ala Nabi Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Well, I have to say that, my family, probably because of its involvement with community service, we were all taught to serve the community. And so we were always involved in some kind of community action or some kind of community program, and specifically directed towards Black people, because back in the 60s, as you know, especially with my parents who were born in, the 29 and 30, 1933, it was very difficult in America for Black people. And so we grew up in kind of a Black awareness family. What occurred was that, we were in activities that promoted trying to improve the state of Black people in America, which is kind of one of the aspects that brought me to Islam. I went to church and was involved in the church and was the president of the youth department and sang in a choir and those types of things. But it wasn't for a religious reason. It was because I liked to sing and, there were girls in the church. So, it was those motivations, not so much religious, And what happened is when I went to college, because I never really accepted Jesus as God. I always was asking questions that never got answered. And I hear that many times from other people that convert. And so what happened when I went to college, I just made up my own concept of religion. And it basically was that there's a God, but he's not Jesus. And of course, when you get to college, I always remember the first Saturday that I woke up and I didn't hear my mother or my father yelling at me, telling me I got to clean up or do some work or something like this. And I said, this is heaven. So I got involved in the whole college, enjoy yourself movement, I guess it was. And it wasn't until I almost flunked out that I came to part of my senses. And then really the big change didn't come until I became Muslim in my junior year of college. And that all occurred because, again, I was in love with this woman. And she wasn't Muslim when we were together, but then she joined the Nation of Islam. And she came and told me that she had joined the Nation of Islam. And what did I think? Well, I said, that's it. I'm finished. I don't want to be in no organization or anything that's going to be dictating to me how to live and how I should arrange my affairs. I can't do that. So what we'll do is we'll just go out to dinner and we'll call it, we'll say goodbye and that's it. And so we went to dinner and she said, well, why don't you come to a meeting? At that time, it was a temple. Yeah. So I said, look, I'll go to the meeting, but I'm telling you right now, I'm not going to become Muslim. I'm not interested in any religion or anything like that, So we went, and it just so happens that was the fourth Sunday, and Imam Muhammad gave a lecture from Chicago on that Sunday. And it was as if all the reasons that I have for not being Muslim, it was like he had them on a card somewhere and he was just destroying each of them. And so by the time he finished, I didn't have a basis for not becoming Muslim. So when they said, do you believe what you heard to be the truth? I raised my hand because to me it was the truth. I mean, he answered even questions that I had about Jesus that never were answered in the church. And so they said, raise your hand. I raised my hand and they said, if you believe what you heard to be the truth, stand up on that truth. And then if you believe that, come on down and join the nation. And so I went on down and joined the nation, and that's how it all started.
Yeah. So this was like right after Elijah Muhammad had passed away, I'm assuming, because you said became Muslim in 1975.
Right. It was October. It was October of 1975, and he had passed because I didn't accept the Nation of Islam's concept of God either. So it never was attractive to me.
Right. So you're saying, so you had already been, familiar with the credo of like what we call the first resurrection under Elijah Muhammad, and when Malcolm was part of it and Farrakhan, and and that wasn't attractive to you. But Imam Muhammad, for some reason, did he sort of change your perspective, or was it clear at that time that they had abandoned some of those things that you found to be offensive?
Yeah. The concept of God had changed. Okay, I didn't know too much about the rest of, Muhammad or anything like that. But the other point that got me was the fact that they wanted to improve the lives of Black people. And it wasn't theology that attracted me. It was the fact that they we're talking about uplifting Black people. So the religion was like another aspect of it, but it wasn't the real theology was not the real selling point for me.
Yeah.
It was at that time in the U.S., I didn't see any group really talking about doing something for Black people. Farrakhan was, talking about it, but he had kind of been quiet during the early part of Walter D. Muhammad's movement. He wasn't really functioning as a national spokesman at that time because Imam Walter D. Muhammad was trying to establish itself. And so Farrakhan, on the first time I saw him at a I guess you call it a conference with Walter D. Muhammad, he was offering his support. And we know that, eventually that he broke off.
It broke away, right? Yeah, yeah. My mother, she said something similar to that when she was alive. Rahimahullah. That she told me that, I guess she probably embraced a lot of the creed of the Nation of Islam, but she had said that she really wasn't all that convinced about some of the things they were saying about white people, and basically it was really. What was really attractive about it was that just the unity itself, right? The community, and the focus on trying to help Black people. And of course, this was a different time, right? I didn't tell you I was going to ask you about this, but I was, I'm thinking about, okay, how things have changed, or have things changed much today? Because we see a lot of talk today about how bad racism is compared to the way it's been in the past. Racism then during those years when you were growing up, and racism today, how would you sort of like judge between the two? Is there much evolution? Is it improvement? Is it going the opposite direction? How would you characterize that?
Well, I don't think that Black people can say there hasn't been improvement. Because not only my parents, but my grandparents, and my grandfather was born in 1889, and I spent time with him. So, and my grandmother on my father's side, the things that they had experienced and how difficult things were for them, it's not as difficult now as it was back then. So things have improved. Is it, what we would want it to be? No, it's not. Okay, you still have discrimination, and you'll probably always have discrimination. Okay, because this is not an Islamic country. I don't mean a Muslim country. I mean an Islamic country that lives by Islamic law and has Islamic values and all of those things. Because even in Muslim countries, there's discrimination and there's, bias and all of these other things that would prevent you. If you ever travel overseas, and especially in Saudi, if you don't show that American passport, you're African, and then you get a different kind of treatment. So,
and of course, and you've been there enough times to know, right?
Yes, I do. I had some times that would have been something like, the old Jim Crow thing, where you're standing online, and then a Saudi national just gets in front of you and you're American, so you're saying, "What's up?" With this, but the guy is only going to serve him before he serves you. All that kind of stuff. But
yeah, right. Yeah. Outside of that, do you feel that today that there are any major barriers to Black progress? And what I mean by progress, like financial progress, moral progress, educational progress. I guess you'd say even progress with respect to where you can and can't live, where you can and can't go.
Well, when you understand history, you see in history that the people that have money are content to be the gatekeepers of how far everybody else gets. And so you have to determine that, Allah is the one in control. And I think this is where I am as far as race and all of these other things. I no longer need to go to white people and ask them for my freedom or opportunity or anything like that. Because this only empowers them, in my thinking. And for Muslims, it's false. It's it's that we go to Allah and we ask Allah, and some might be saying, "Oh yeah, that's simple," but if you really, one of the books that I recently read was The People's History of the United States by Howard Zinn, I think his name is.
Yeah, Howard Zinn, yeah.
Yeah. And, it kind of really made this point that it's not about these racial things and things like that. It's really about the people who have it preventing others from getting it. And so they will take advantage of any people, black, white, Chinese, whatever it is, to get what they prize more than anything else, which is money. And so when black people look at slavery, we look at slavery like, they discriminated against us and took us, and they were looking at slavery like, a drug dealer looks at crack. That it was a money maker. And they were going to take advantage of this money-making enterprise. If they could have made it on the backs of white people, they would have. And they did. They had indentured slaves that were white. All right. But, we had the tag of being dark-skinned, so we could easily be identified. But the whole thing was a money-making venture. They weren't mad that if slaves could be free and still, not get paid and work on a plantation, they would have freed us a long time ago. But the whole idea was it was a moneymaker. And so, if we look at it from that way, it doesn't lessen the inhumanity and the cruelty and the things that they did to us as a people and continue to do in certain situations. We would really find that it's always been about money.
That's a great point. Great point. Yeah. How would you sort of characterize your value system growing up? Of course, you talked a little bit about the church, and I imagine that, your family, went to the church regularly. Could you say that you grew up in a religious household? And, of course, religious, what that means to different people means something different to different people, but would you say that you grew up in a religious household and perhaps that had some effect on your later decision to transition, or made it easier for you to transition into Islam?
No, I didn't grow up in a religious household. From the standpoint of, my mother went to church, my father didn't. And we were made to go to church. And when we got there, we were not in compliance. We were the people that used to question everything. So the Sunday school teacher just told us, look, you got to believe, and that's it. So, and for my mother, it was more a social thing, that she was involved in the church and all the activities and all that kind of stuff. But it never was something that we did in the house. You prayed over your food before you ate it. And if your parents made you, you made a prayer before you went to sleep. But it wasn't that kind of household. It was, I'll just say, a recognition that there's a God, but and doing the things that Christians are supposed to do as far as Sunday and Easter and Christmas and whatnot. But it wasn't overly religious. My father, he in fact, he became Muslim near the end of his life. But he was searching too, and he was searching more than I was searching for religion. And he got involved with some black church over in New York. I thought he was going to become a preacher or something. But that faded off, and then he got cancer, and he had attended my first son's funeral, who died a few hours after being delivered. And he was there at the janazah. And he had always said before that, should he die, he wanted to be buried very simply. And so when he saw that, it just, he was affected by it, and he ended up taking a shahada with my brother.
MashaAllah, yeah. It's really interesting, the things that sort of sparked people's interest in conversion. I remember listening to Bilal Phillips years ago. He was talking about, okay, well, I was studying Islam's economic theory or his sort of economic ideas, and he was into economics. And so he found that what he read was superior to what he had already been familiar with, and he became Muslim. A friend of mine, he became Muslim simply because somebody came and asked him to become a Muslim. So he just walked up. This is a guy from the UK, and he, used to do acid and things like that. And so he tells me that one day the Muslim guy in his Arabic class comes up to him and says, "Hey, what do you think about becoming a Muslim? Why don't you become a Muslim?" So he sat back and thought about it. He said, "I don't really know much about Islam." I said, "Okay." and right now he's like a scholar, right? And so it's really interesting, the things the ways people sort of find their way to Islam.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so
it definitely is.
Yeah, so we first met. Yeah, we first met back in 1993 on Hajj. Well, actually before Hajj, because you were helping out Dr. Habib Malik, rahimahullah, in the Hajj program, and in those years. Very few people that I knew in America actually were going to Hajj. This was, because you remember those days, before they were big Hajj groups. Almost nobody I knew was going to Hajj. And I was very young at the time. I was the youngest person in the group, if I recall. And that may be one. There may be one younger than I was actually, in that particular group. But it was a really life-changing journey for me because it was the first time I had ever been on a plane, first time I'd ever been out of the country. And so it was a very, very spiritual experience for me. And I only went with, I had a few changes of clothing. I had a duffel bag with maybe 3 sort of, changes of clothing. But of course, all of you, you made it, you all made it that possible for me. And then after that, when I came home, I really wanted to just sort of move around a little bit more, So I reached out to you and Brother Mujahid, Imam Mujahid Abdul Salam as well. And so started to come and visit you guys out there in New Jersey. And so it really was a transformative point in my life, so in that sense, like I said, this is one of the reasons why I say I have to honor you at least in some way, right? You say, let people know that, that you have been one of my mentors and also, I guess you'd say in Philly, we call it one of my old heads, right? So, so,
Alhamdulillah, may Allah give us the good from it, inshallah. We ask for that.
So how many times have you made Hajj?
Oh, subhanallah. I didn't count them. I think it might have been 6 or 7. But I hear about it now and I say, well, I'm glad I made it then. It's a big production now.
Yeah. And back then also, it was easier to actually get access to the Kaaba itself.
Oh, yes.
Today, I remember the very first time I saw the Kaaba, on that trip, you can see it from the door. You come to the door and right there, it's right there. SubhanAllah, just big, anybody can see any door you go through, you can see it. But now when you go there, actually I just made Hajj again in 2015. And when you get there now, and I went for Umrah last summer, right? When you go in, you can't see it, right? You have to look for the Kaaba. You have to go way inside of the masjid. You have to walk for quite a while before you're able to see the Kaaba, right? So it's not as I don't feel the same level of, I guess you'd say, the spiritual energy that I felt in the past, right? But but a lot of people, if their first time there, it might be a different story for them, and it's and in some ways it's easier now, in some ways it's harder as well. So
I'm hearing the stories and seeing some of the pictures, and I said, I'll have to erase everything that I remember. Because it'll make it easier on me to you show your phone and they tell you what time you can make tawaf, or you can you can go and greet the prophet and all this. That's why I say it's a big production now. It used to be you go and you sit on the road and nobody bothers you. You can stay there as long as you want. But now it's, okay, 15 minutes, everybody up, move, next group in, that'll be a new experience.
So how would you describe your current occupation? I know you retired, so you worked in the prison, right, for a number of years. And so I know you're retired now, but so how would you sort of describe what you do these days?
These days, I volunteer in the prison. I go to New Jersey State Prison and Garden State Correctional Facility. I have classes there, and I'm involved with a couple online programs that Imam Salam and I do. One on Riyadh Salihin, and he's doing tafsir on the Quran that we do for one of the communities here, as well as anybody that wants to listen to it. And the local masjid here, that was, I always say, built because of a dua that I made on Hajj. And the brothers from Turkey opened it up, so I had to become a member, because it was the answer to a dua. And at first I didn't recognize it as the answer to the dua, because we had always thought that, the African American community here would open one, and that would be the one. But Allah gave us this one, so I joined and became a member. So I'm involved with them.
No, go ahead.
I'm like the English, the provider of English dawah and classes and translations of kutas and things like that.
Okay. What type of community? How would you describe the community there? Its makeup, demographics, things like that.
It's majority Turkish. Juma is everybody comes, like in most masjids, out of convenience, or really more so out of convenience. And it's a beautiful building, and I would say they suffer because they're not familiar with America, and it's having a real effect on their children, but they're oblivious to it. And unfortunately, there's a thing by most people who come here to try to make this like that, the country that they left.
Right.
And it's a big mistake, because it's not going to work. And so you get these stories of some of the kids really having some major problems, and the parents are lost. And I don't think, and since we're talking frank, when you're a Black American or African American, there's not a lot of credibility given to your insight, or your advice. And it has to do with, I believe, just cultural perception. So this is a big barrier for not just Turks, for all the people that migrated here. This is a big issue. And so I find that Black American Muslims are really now on the back burner of their opinions and their advice and things. I mean, any Black American Muslim would have told you what a mistake it is to put any value in supporting one of these presidents, whether it's Trump or somebody else. They would have told you, don't look for
a savior.
You got to remember, you got to look for what the Indians, the Native Americans had said a long time ago. The white man speak with forked tongue, and Black people had enough promises to know that, they don't come to reality. So, but as I said, there's this inability to really value Black people. And, you just, it's not that I'm fighting it. I'll just say, if you can benefit. If not, then so be it.
Yeah, no, that's an important issue to raise, and I have mixed feelings about it because, well, on one hand, I totally agree that our overall experience in America has been one that has sort of made us very independent from the dominant culture itself. In other words, we don't see the validity, authenticity of our Americanness being determined by being more like white people, right? But rather actually being somewhat different, disparate from them. While at the same time, we failed to sort of create critical infrastructure in our communities and do things that would, I would say, help to improve people's image of just how industrious we are or could be, right? And it seems to me there's been somewhat of a retraction due to like this new victim culture that is being reintroduced into the mainstream America. It's not only with Blacks, but it's with the gays, and with the transgenders, with the Muslims, with everybody. So like Black people, so many of us, too many of us, I would say, have embraced the idea that our existence is defined by our historical victimhood rather than the ability to overcome victimhood and to achieve despite all the obstacles in our way, right? And I would say that that's one of the main reasons why I asked the question earlier about, where you think things are. It's like how much has the conditions improved with respect to racism, and are there any real obstacles to Black sort of like progress in the financial, educational, and other realms like that? And so I make the exception I always make is that if you're someone who was found guilty of a crime that you didn't commit. Right. Let's say you're just hanging out with the boys one day and everybody gets rounded up and somebody has some drugs and they actually include you in that, but you didn't have any drugs at all. And then you get a record because of that, and that messes up your life. I would say, the system had done you an injustice. Right. So with the exception of people like that, I generally say, well, Black people have made a lot of progress. And for anything that we want, we can get it today, right? So I'm sorry to ramble on, but just figured I'd throw that in there too.
This is very true. This is very true, and I think for the people who are in this time, who again are not familiar with history, if you talk to older people and even read books about how it was and where you are now, there's no way you can say there hasn't been any progress. I mean, the fact that Black Americans are not in slavery. Forget how it was done or the reason behind it or anything else, other than that Allah freed us from that bondage. All right. At the same time, I think it's unrealistic to expect that the people that have it are going to just give it to other people.
Right.
It never happens. You're going to have to get it yourself.
Yeah.
And the grace of Allah, you have to get it. So if you're waiting for laws to be written or policies to be changed that will advantage you, you're sadly mistaken. This is not a reality.
Yeah. So, I'll give an example. Like, so I was having
yes.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish your point. I thought you were finished.
Go ahead.
No, I thought you were. I didn't realize you.
Finished.
Oh, okay. Now, I was going to say that recently there was like, we remember when Trump, like, he instituted the tariffs on all these countries. And then he lifted them for most of them countries. At least he decreased the amount of tariffs that he imposed on all these countries, right? The stock market prior to that had crashed, and then it sort of rebounded. But maybe a day or so before he actually changed his policy with regard to the tariffs, he had posted, it's a good time to invest. Right? So there were some people who I knew who were complaining. It's like, well, that's terrible. How can he do that? And then all these people on Wall Street get rich. And my response to him was that, well, yes, they're going to get rich, but you had an opportunity to get rich too. Right. So it wasn't as if that it was impossible or for you to get rich or into the stock market, or that you were barred from entry into the stock market so that you couldn't invest. Right. So quite often when I had these sort of conversations with people who actually want me to continue to perpetuate the idea that white supremacy, for instance, is the most significant threat to my progress right now, right? And that there's nothing much that I can do. As I always ask them, okay, what is it that you want to do that white supremacy and racism is keeping you from doing? Right.
Well,
and without fail, no one ever can give me an answer. Right.
No, and the one that they don't want to hear about.
Yeah.
Because you don't need government funding or anything or any new laws or anything written, which is the major cause for many blacks not to be advancing or improving their lives, has to do with the fact that the black family is just being destroyed. I mean, when you look at, having worked in the prison system for all these years, I've seen so many men come to prison who did not have fathers involved in their life. And it's even worse now. I mean, the percentage of black marriages that take place is very small. I don't know, years ago, it was, it was like, I forgot, what's it?
The majority of the blacks prior to the 60s actually came from, intact families there. Yeah, but now it's like almost 80% of children born out of wedlock. Yeah,
I think it was 26%. And this has a devastating effect. And even the ones that are married, because they can get married and divorced now, all in a few days. So, you have this situation where you don't have strong families. And it's that family that is the means for this improvement that takes place. Strong families makes a strong society, but weak families is what we're suffering from. And you have men now who don't have a male figure in their life. So what I'm seeing with men, and even white men at that, is that there's feminine qualities, not that they're gay or homosexual. They just have feminine disposition, I'll put it like that. And so this is a real hindrance because women are looking to marry a man, but he's got qualities that are similar to qualities that, you know, they don't want
Right.
as a man in their life. So this, I think, is the biggest problem facing Black America is the weakness in the family structure. And if that doesn't improve, it's just downhill.
Yeah. Well, no, I totally agree with that. I mean, this is something that Barack Obama said when he was president. The Republicans always say this, you know, and of course, when Republicans say it, you know, the reaction is always, okay, well, that's, you know, for some reason it's like racist, you know, say there's something wrong with the culture itself, right? You know, but I think the more important question I would ask is, how much clout do you think Black Muslims have among like the general Black population today? And I mean, there used to be a time, and when you were growing up, I imagine, I'm quite sure I heard this stated before, you know, and I was younger too, right? Because my family's an old Nation of Islam family as well. That there was a time where Black people who are not Muslims, they looked towards the Muslim community, especially the Nation of Islam, as having like major clout, that, you know, that we can sort of tell them things that will help them to do better, and we can be critical of them, and people won't take it personally, right? They'll say, okay, this is genuine nasiha, counsel from these people. You know, what type of clout do you think we have today with Black people in general?
Well, I really I wonder about this. I wonder because I don't see it. I mean, you still see Black people that when they see a Muslim or somebody they think is Muslim, they say, "Hey, brother," you know. They still, you know, will curb their language or something. The older ones, not the younger ones, but the older ones, still have kind of that respect. I don't find it too much in the younger ones. And that's, I think, has to do with the way the young Muslims are not really distinct. And in some cases, you know, I've had men come to prison and say, you know, my girlfriend, she's Muslim, you know, so he's a non-Muslim. So, you know, I don't think the way it was distinguished during the Nation of Islam is that they wore suits and the women wore the traditional Nation of Islam hijab. And so you distinguish them by how neat and clean their places were and all those particular things. But I don't think that distinction is there with Muslims in most cities, that they distinguish themselves to the point that you see them as a figure that you would want to follow. But on an individual basis, and this is what brings people to Islam, they had some interaction with, not as a group, but as individuals, like on their job or, you know, their neighbor or something like that. They see this family or this brother who has these qualities that they just like. And so they end up becoming Muslim because of a friend of theirs. And so what I'm seeing is people come to the masjid and say, a friend of mine wants to take a shahada. I've seen that many, many times now. So there's still some effect, but I don't think it's a group effect. I think people are distinguishing because I have older people come up to me and say, "You a Muslim?" I say, "Yes, I'm a Muslim." He said, "Let me ask you a question. My granddaughter is with this Muslim guy. You know the rest is going to be downhill after that. Is it right for him to be doing such and such and such and such?" I say, "No, sir, it's not right." I thought that was the case. I knew Muslims, and this is what a lot of people don't understand. People do know what Muslims are supposed to be doing. So he made it a point of saying, "Yeah, I knew he wasn't supposed to be doing that." So I said, "Yeah, that's right." You know, so tell him that he needs to practice his religion. Yeah.
Sometimes I wonder, like, well, I feel pretty confident about this conclusion I've come to. Coming back to the question earlier about like why the immigrant Muslims themselves perhaps don't give as much deference to our positions, our opinions on things, and I think it has a direct correlation to the overall state of Black America, right? For one, right, the moral state, right? It's morally decadent state, or unfortunately, it's a state, of course, America overall, right? But it's really bad for Black America,
Yes.
and quite often, some of our leaders, I would even say, they give off the impression to a lot of the members of the American community that we really have a lot of clout with Black America. Unfortunately, they don't know that that's not the case. But many of the people, like even including myself, like tell people, say, listen, I don't live in the hood anymore, right? I mean, most of my family does, so I'm still in contact with them. So I know what's happening in the hood, if I talk to them. I don't live there. The organization I work for is not a Black organization. Most of your popular Black leaders don't work for Black organizations. They work for immigrant organizations, right? And it's like, okay, well, you guys can't even build infrastructure for your own leaders. Not saying that the leaders deserve that infrastructure, in other words, have that paid dues in order to deserve that infrastructure. Not all of us, right? Whatever, or most of us, perhaps even, But again, the point being that they themselves, at least, they came to the United States. They did what they could to preserve their culture, right? And then when one of us steps in, we say, "Hey, listen, I'm going to tell you how to do this, how to navigate the terrain here." Even if we're right, I can understand why someone might feel, okay, well, maybe you're not the best person for me to listen to because, you don't really look to be very successful, right? You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you get the point I'm saying. Yeah, I just think like psychologically that it makes sense on one level, right?
Yeah, well, I agree with you. That perception that people have. I also think, and seeing how communities are, I see the brothers from Guinea, the brothers from Sierra Leone, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and all these other places. The whole slave trade did something to us that altered us from everyone else. And the impact of it is that banding together is a lot more difficult than it is for people who have come from the same country and have a similar history in that whole. We don't have a tribe. And, Ibn Khaldun, he writes about the tribes and the cohesion and all of those aspects that benefit that tribal mentality, which is something that is not hated in Islam, that you have a tribe. It's connected to the family, it's connected to that whole aspect. And the broader thing is that you're part of a larger community of Muslims, but it all boils down, it goes all the way down to the family and works itself out from the tribe to the country to the whatever. And I think that for us, it's really very difficult. When we even say Black, I don't even know what that means anymore because there's so many different aspects of that, so many different social classes. There's Blacks that have no identity with other Black people at all. And I mean, not just a few. I mean, there's a whole, culture of Blacks that were raised with money. And, if you go down to Atlanta and you probably would have to be serving at the cotillion in order to see it. But, they have these groups of people that are socially on a different class. So they wouldn't even see themselves in the same light as people in the hood. So we have some challenges that other people don't have in trying to put together. I was trying to think of, I was asking people, so what are Black issues? what specifically are Black issues anymore?
Yeah.
We used to have a convention in New Jersey called the Black Issues Convention. I don't think they have it anymore. But it was all about, presidential campaigns and what you want to make the issue of Black people. I don't know. I'm asking that question. What are Black issues that we can say this specifically affects Blacks? All right. Police brutality. Okay. All right. To what degree? To what point? So, right. I'm looking.
That's a good point. Very good point.
What do we tell Black people in the hood is the concern? What are your concerns? What do you find difficult?
Yeah. Are you familiar with Professor Thomas Sowell?
No.
Well, Thomas Sowell, he's a conservative Black economist. Like right now, I think he's 93 years old now, but he still has his wits, mashallah, and he has a number of books, a lot of books, and he works at Stanford University for a particular think tank there. I believe it's the Hoover Institution at Stanford University, right? So this question of the effects of slavery on the Black population in America, he challenges that. He makes the point that, well, if that was the case, if slavery is what did this all to us, then why was it that right after emancipation and in the early decades of the American, country, the itself, the American project, that you have more, families, Black families staying together and less out of wedlock births than you do today, right? And so he argues that really the turning point was actually after civil rights legislation, and in particular the welfare state, the welfare legislation, right? And of course, on the tail end of the sexual revolution as well, right? So it's like sexual revolution, welfare state, and then of course the civil rights acts of the 60s. So it said after this point things became progressively worse for the Black community, whereas prior to that things were actually a lot better, even with regard to wealth. So he makes these points. It's really, really, really important. And which to me, like, I've come to the conclusion that is not so much slavery or post-slavery syndrome or that has affected us, but rather it's been our educational system, it's been the media, it's been the movies that we watch, right? Which actually have had a very detrimental effect on our culture. I don't think that you can get rid of classism. Classism is, it's even hard to get rid of classism than to get rid of racism, right? In my opinion, right? So you're going to have classes among all different types of people. There's hierarchy among white people as well as, anyone else, right? So the Indians, there's the caste system, the untouchables. Everyone has a sort of a class sort of system, right? But again, I just felt that would be sort of useful, sort of like comment to make about like this other perspective that I think would actually help a lot of our people to understand that, okay, well, maybe it's not, post-slavery syndrome that's affecting us, because there are other people who also were enslaved, right? But they don't live under the same conditions that we live under today.
Yeah. Well, I think there's probably, validity in what he's saying. I do see that, there's been progress in spite of the obstacles that are there. But I also think that, and I don't have this study that was talking about how things even affect animals, that the children that are born are affected by something that they were being tested with, and I don't have the information to go into it. But I think in our case, again, when we look at slavery, there were classes of slaves, and there were different levels. And there was something in the black community that happened before, civil rights and all the laws and things were passed. It used to be that the doctor, the black doctor, the teachers and everything lived in the same community. They were all in the same community together. So we interacted with all of them, with their children and families. I mean, a friend of my parents was a dentist and a doctor and school teachers and things like that. But when the doors opened for civil rights, those people left the communities.
Yeah.
All right, leaving behind those most disadvantaged people to be in the hood.
Right.
And so as a result of that migration of the professionals and the educated people seeing the opportunity to move to better neighborhoods and to buy and do business in the better part of town, it had a devastating effect on the black community. Because where I could see the doctor and say I wanted to be a dentist, which is what happened. I really wanted to be a dentist because it was a black dentist. All right. And so that image is not in the town anymore. Yes, you can see an ad on a billboard or see them on TV, but it's not the same as really seeing that person in your house and you're in his house and those kind of, you play with his kids and those types of things. So I think some of it, yes, I don't think you can totally cancel out slavery as having no effect on these situations at all. Especially when I read some of the stories about how families were broken up and how men were made to leave. And then when the welfare situation came in, it just escalated that whole process of a man not being in the household. All right, so you got money for the man leaving. But there were men like my grandfather, when they came and told him that he would have to leave the house in order to get welfare, he told them no, he wasn't leaving. They can keep their welfare. All right. And he went and got a push cart and started picking up junk.
Yeah, mashallah.
So we can get a horse.
Overcome adversity, right? So again, I think that again, to me, I like to define the black struggle, the black experience through the ability to overcome adversity, right? Rather than being in a permanent
use it as an excuse of being a victim and not being able to change your state.
Right, exactly. Yeah. I mean, so
I agree with you.
Yeah,
wholeheartedly. And I would never tell someone, well, go ahead.
No, I didn't say anything. You said you would never tell someone something.
Go ahead. You said you had a couple more questions?
No, I wanted you to finish your thought. You said that you would never tell someone what?
I would never tell anyone, because of slavery, you can't advance. The same thing I tell guys in prison. All right, don't think that because you did this crime and you got a record that you can't improve your life. All right, improving your life is in the hands of Allah.
Right.
And so what you need to do is pray to him, ask him for help, and then get up and do something. So the same thing is for black people. We can't sit around talking about the white man is not doing for me, and they treated us as slaves and discriminated against us. It's not going to help. What's going to help is, as I said, making dua and then going out and putting your trust in him. So that's my take on it.
Alhamdulillah. Yeah. So, Sheikh, could you think of anyone or two people or whatever, whatever number, right, of people who perhaps have had a major impact on your own life, or perhaps someone you've read about who you think people need to know more about, who you can speak about a little bit?
There's a lot of people, but past and present. But I have to say, the one that has really had a major effect on me is Sheikh Noor Hamid Keller. And as you know, he recently produced a translation of the Quran. And I always tell people it's the most unique translation that I've ever read. And I'm in a tafsir class on his translation. And subhanAllah, it gives you such a deep understanding of what Allah is getting at when he says certain things. And so this is something that, I really have benefited from. And the fact that, he's a sheikh of spirituality, we'll use a term that's easier on the ears. And that aspect of Islam, as I said, I didn't come into Islam for theology. And theology really never interests me. Because I had an idea of who God is. Or I just needed to know, the barrier, the limits of my own understanding. And what I mean is, to know what he is and what he isn't. I'm good. I don't need to study theology for 30, 40 years. All I need to know is he describes himself as this, I accept it. That's it. And then the rest is trying to have this relationship with the one that I'm worshiping and how to draw near to him. That's my motivation now. And so he's a sheikh of describing how or what you need to do in order to get where you're trying to get to. And isn't that it? We're trying to, be in the presence of Allah. And so I would say that he's probably the most influential person. And then all the other people that are in that line from whom I benefited from. It took me a while to really appreciate, and it shouldn't have taken so long for me to appreciate it. Just recently, Imam Rasul Muhammad, because I had a conflict with him about, the teachings that the community kind of got stuck in, and the nationalism and all the other stuff that goes on. But it was his talk that really brought me here. By the grace of Allah put the words in his mouth to come to me so that I would enter into Islam. So I had to give him his rights. And so, and in between that, there's all these people, including yourself, that, man, subhanAllah, how much benefit I've gotten. I really feel, unworthy, really unworthy of being called imam or any of these things. I know people, they think, calling me imam is some honor to me, but really, it's almost, to me, it's like, oh my goodness, they really think that. Why tag me with that tag? Just Rasul Suluki is good enough. But they don't. No, you this and that. No, I'm just Rasul Suluki from wherever I am right now. And
no, well, you're a lovable person. Right. And, so of course you definitely deserve the title Imam. You've already been like a moral exemplar for me in my life. And, I remember listening to one of Sheikh Noor, his talks some years ago, where he talked about, I think he'd come to America. This was close to 9/11, and he was stopped by the FBI. They questioned him and they asked him like what he did, what was his job. And he really gave this really funny response. And he said, well, my job is I teach people how to make good use of their time.
Time management.
Right. So, and I think it really accurately sort of describes that. I also would say, too, that like Sufism is a safe word on this podcast. I just say to you, we're Sufism, but I did want to highlight this, and this is something I didn't bring out during the interview at the start, which is that, and I think about you and your trajectory, and of course, I may miss some things or mischaracterize some things, so you can correct me, but it's really interesting. You come through a household where, okay, your mom sees into the church, your father's not so much so. You're questioning, of course, the theology of Jesus Christ. Then, your girlfriend, I guess you say, she becomes a member of the Nation of Islam, but under the tutelage of Imam W. Muhammad, and then asks you to come to the temple. You go there, he convinces you to become Muslim, right? And then, of course, you eventually become Imam and you're studying it. But you have your own sort of ideological struggles, right? Ups and downs, because we didn't talk about the fact, okay, when you go from the nation and then eventually, interest in Salafism and then, and then it's really interesting to find, okay, try at the end. Okay, now you're into Sufism, I guess you would say, right? It's
been some transition, no doubt. I wouldn't recommend it for anybody else. I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah, but you know what? It's like, but you know what? That actually, when you think about the autobiography of Malcolm X, a lot of people appreciated that part of him, that he was actually honest, he was sincere, that he was willing to accept that, okay, I was wrong then, but now I'm finding my way, right? And I think that there should be more of that, more humility about just how much certainty or lack of certainty we have about what the right path is.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm a candidate. I mean, I'm a poster child for that. I mean, it doesn't do good for your children because you're going through a process.
Yeah.
And you're confused. You don't even know. I see these families with these tremendous children that have all these beautiful Islamic characters. And, I say to myself, man, what happened to your children? Why, And then I say, well, what happened to you? I mean, you were not in that form of their parents. Look at their parents. Their parents have those qualities that they transfer to their children. We were confused about so much about Islam and trying to piece together. Yes, I converted to Islam, but, and you marry somebody and they got different ideas, and I can just tell people, you're very fortunate right now that there's places like this, and there's brothers like, there's sheikhs and teachers like, Sheikh Abdullah, and all these people. We didn't have that back in the 70s. We just didn't have it. And you were just trying to piecemeal your religion together. And it is only by the grace of Allah that really I came through what I wouldn't put anybody else through. I would hope that nobody has to go through that. But I have to say this. There's one thing it helped me with. It helped me to realize today what is really, I want to say, the path, if that's the way, and also how to deal with groups. Because there's going to be more groups. I mean, you have the Salafi movement, you have the, all these Ansar groups and all of those different things. How do you view them? Even spirituality, how do you view it? And Sufism, what's a good group and what's not? All right. Going through all those different phases or experiences that I had with all these different communities taught me to be able to look at things critically and see what qualities mimic what is a part of our deen, and and knowing people like Sheikh Ali to know to ask questions to. In fact, I got a question for him today. So it's knowing people like that I can go to and ask questions. And so when I go to a group and I see something that, like I went with one group and their sheikh said, in order for you to get the knowledge, you got to give me 1/3 of your pay right off the top. And I said, wow, that's more than tithes. So that wrote him off, And so when there's things that happen, even in the Shadley group that I belong to, there was a thing that occurred where I called it a purging. Where there was these accusations that were being made, and whether they were true or false or whatever the case may be, but these things occurred in my experience with dealing with groups and communities. And what you have to determine is, what are you there for, and what are you trying to get? And this makes it easy for me to follow. Because I can easily say, I'm taking what's in the hand, not, this person. It's not about the person. And see, when you're young, it's about people. It's about, I'm following Sheikh so-and-so, I'm following, it's all about him and or her or whatever the case may be. But when you get old, like me, you're not impressed with gloss. You're not impressed with appearance anymore, or you're really looking for that soundness and its compliance with this book and the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and this whole disposition of being like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because that's the direction. The more we're directed to his character, I can line myself up and say, okay, you're out of sync with him and these qualities. So you need to get rid of those qualities that you have and adopt the ones that he has. And so this is it's easy now. It just was hard in the past. And with the computer, I feel sorry for young people now. That's a ball of confusion.
Right. Well, that's beautiful. So final, hopefully a final question. Do you have any writings, any books?
Alhamdulillah, I really don't have any books that I wrote, and I will never write a book. I will never write a book. I didn't even want to record the talks that I give online. I hate hearing myself. I never listen to my own lectures that I give at the masjid or anywhere else. El Makassid put some things online. They were the first ones that I heard, and I said, "Wow, who's that?" And I'm not that person. I'm just someone that is, I don't know, just trying to practice and aid other people in practicing, and that's pretty. Most of my work is in the prison. If you come to jail, if you get locked up, you'll see my
try to make it happen in New Jersey. Try to make it happen.
Right, it has to be in New Jersey, and you have to get a maximum prison a sentence, or you have to get not a juvenile, but a young Muslim sentence. And then, you can see me once a week, inshallah.
That's so funny. Allah bless you. God bless you.
And you.
All right, Sheikh. It's really been a pleasure. I really do appreciate it. And, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue to bless you. Any sort of final thoughts, any final statement, counsel you'd like to offer? Or let's call it a day.
I said the same thing on Al Maqasid's program, and that is find your niche. Mm-hmm. Find your niche, your expression of this deen according to the Quran and Sunnah, and don't copy what you see in other people. And what I mean by that, you can copy what you see in the Messenger of Allah and those who are emulating him. Absolutely. But one thing people try to do is they try to fit themselves into other people's way, and that don't work. So you have to find your own niche, or as we used to say in the 70s and whatnot, find your own groove. And that's where you work from. You find what particular work in this deen that you can do, and then you specialize in that. And it may be certain people, it may be certain places, it may be certain topics, but find some way to serve this Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and you'll be the happiest person. Because I have to tell you, and I don't say this often because the people of Hasid might start giving me the evil eye and stuff, but I'm happy. I really am. I'm grateful, happy to Allah that He gave me this tremendous life in this deen. And sometimes I say it's going so good. I think I'm one of those people. Sometimes I even tell the sheikh, I say I think I'm somebody bound to go to hell because it's so good. I mean, I'm saying to myself, well, the only people that it's really good for, the Prophet had a lot of difficulty in his life. I haven't. Well, maybe if I told you some stories, you'd say, "Wow, you." But no, I'm grateful for it, and meeting you, alhamdulillah. And I got a question for you, so don't forget that after this program. So.
All right, inshallah. Well, inshallah, it's been a pleasure. We're definitely going to follow up afterwards, but inshallah, hopefully we have other opportunities to showcase, you and maybe others as well at the same time. And but I really do thank you for taking the opportunity and giving me your time to record this interview, this historical record, this archival sort of material, because that's really what it is at the end of the day. And hopefully it'll be some benefit to others who listen, and maybe even some people in the future. Barakallahu fikum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa
barakatuh. Subscribe to Lamppost Education Initiative on YouTube and Spotify.